meeting at 7 o'clock, 7th of November, and the council meeting includes policy committee meetings. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Can you hear okay up the back? Terrific. First of all, apologies for absence.
I have two apologies for lateness from
Move that way, Mr. Chairman.
I dare find out who they are.
Councillor Munro and Councillor Taylor.
You move that way.
Second, please. All in favour?
Aye.
Live stream and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure that you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes and will be available to councillors. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who may be present. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter consideration tonight? Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item 4.1 in the council meeting. I have a less than significant non-pecuniary interest as a member of one of the service clubs in Orange, the Rotary Club of Orange Daybreak. I'll be staying in for the conversation on that one.
I declare an interest in planning and development. Item 2.4, 185 to 193 Bathurst Road. That's non-pecuniary, less than significant. Delay is a personal friend of mine. Any others? No mayoral minutes. Council meeting now adjourns for the conduct of the open forum. We have several speakers this evening, and so we'll start with, I acknowledge the Honourable Mark Pearson, and as the speaker, and he's with Queenie Green, and the organisation is the Animal Justice Party of New South Wales.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors. The Animal Justice Party is pleading with the Orange Council to become the 44th council in Australia to ban the permission of circuses with exotic animals from performing on council-owned and controlled land. In 2008, in the sunny seaside town of Yamba, an elephant called Anna, which was in Stardust Circus, knocked down her trainer and then crushed him with her right leg. Crushed his body, but specifically the trauma was of the right aorta of his heart. She was then moved to the Open Plain Zoo near Dubbo. She and her partner Gigi were the last two elephants ever allowed to perform in animal circuses. Unfortunately, we have three circuses, two of which, Stardust and Lennon Brothers, which seek permission to perform on Orange Council land, that have tigers, tigons and primates. 8 years before that incident where Anna killed her trainer, she also grabbed a woman and dragged her to the front of her enclosure and began to crush her with her trunk, behaving extremely psychotically and very disturbed. She was released by her three children and survived after a great deal of trauma. The first point I'd like to make clear to the councillors is that circuses with exotic animals are a very, very serious risk to the public. And we call upon you as councillors to consider this in the fact that you are responsible for the well-being and welfare of the people who live in Orange and who might attend the 10-day circus with exotic animals, the tourists passing through or people travelling through. And that, having that knowledge, if an incident does occur, then that would no doubt put the council itself in possible jeopardy of being implicated. And this has been the reason why 8 of the 43 councils across Australia, one of the main reasons they did actually ban the performance of circuses with exotic animals. But the second most important issue is that circuses could not perform unless they were exempted from the Exhibited Animals Protection Act 1985. No circus would be able to keep primates, big cats, in the enclosures and cages that they do, particularly the beast wagons, because they have to travel from town to town to town, and they have to put these animals in extreme confinement and put them through all sorts of temperatures and pressures and stresses. And this is what contributes to some of the aberrant and disturbing behaviour and dangerous behaviour of these animals. Stardust has 4 lions and 7 primates, as well as livestock animals, and Lennon Brothers has lions and primates and camels. So the other aspect of the argument is, and this is what's been the experts around the world have been discussing and debating and doing research on, and it is why more than 40 countries banned the use of circuses being able to perform with that have exotic animals. And that is, even though a primate or a big cat is tamed, unlike other animals, domesticated animals, it can never be domesticated. It can only be tamed. It is always essentially wild. And being a wild animal, frustrated and distressed by the confinement. So I would ask each of you, putting aside all the arguments one way or the other from the circus industry or the animal protection organisations, if you go down and objectively observe these primates in the cages and these lions pacing, frantic, repetitive, what they call stereotypic behaviours, where they keep repeating the same movement. The one thing I noticed with Anna the elephant, when she was released from Stardust after she killed her trainer, she, for years before, all the time we saw her in the circus, she was constantly swaying and had to be chained. Within 6 months of being put into Dubbo Open Plains Zoo with 2 other elephants, that stereotypic behaviour stopped. She started to play and express some of her normal behaviours. Now, we're not saying that these animals can be released back into the wild. They could not possibly survive, but there are places for them to go to. Dubbo Open Plains Zoo, Monaro Open Plains Zoo, and other spaces where they're not moving, travelling in beast wagons, coming into contact with loud noises and with children crying and screaming. I mean, there was a child that was attacked by a tygont and her 2 arms were removed. This is a very serious issue. And the other aspect, I think, which is very important, is that the circus will tell you that this is educating our children. Now, I know what Sir David Attenborough would say about that the way to educate our children about the beauty and majesty of these animals is to allow our children to see them where they choose to be, or to watch the documentaries which depict the way they behave and the way they interact with each other.
Mr Pearce, I'll just have to get an extension. Nugent, second Councillor Leto, all in favour? Yep.
And I'll just finish by pointing out that circuses used to display Indigenous people, Aboriginal people, as cannibals. And they took a family of Indigenous people to the United States, where they performed with Barnum and Bailey. Many of them died because of disease and ill health. But what this depicts, and finally the Indigenous community and family in southern Queensland put in an application for over many years to have the remains of Tambo, who was performing in the circus of Barnum and Bailey, to bring him back to his country. So why I'm raising this is that animal circuses, particularly those with exotic animals, come from an age of an attitude where the vulnerable, where those whom we don't understand are put into situations where they're put on show, they're made fun of, and they're made to become a mockery of themselves. And all this with these animals is certainly not education for our children. So I implore, the Animal Justice Party implores councillors, you council please, to become the 44th council in Australia to say no to this archaic and medieval type of entertainment, quote unquote. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pearson. Second speaker is Steve Adams, and that's the Orange Evangelical Church.
Thank you, Mayor Kidd, Orange City councillors and guests. One of the leaders of Orange Evangelical Church for the last 20 years, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the church in regard to the proposed amendment to our operating hours for our church at 241 Ploughman's Lane, which we intend to build. Many of those here tonight represent the 500 adults and 250 children who call OEC, or our church, their home, and they're personally invested into this project. We'd like to progress with the building of the access road off Cargo Road as soon as possible, but at the moment we're at an impasse. Unfortunately, the time restrictions that Council has placed on us for their operating hours means that we cannot do much of the ministry that we currently do. So we can't, it's pointless us proceeding at this stage unless those operating hours extend beyond 7 p.m. on Sunday to Thursday and a little earlier on Sunday mornings. It's not that we hold church services every night of the week or anything like that, but we do run programs and courses, and we hold meetings in the evenings through the week. And many of these are very small, 5 to 15 people maybe, but they're integral to what we do. Our church is not a weekend-only organisation. Any concerns about us disturbing our neighbours have been more than adequately addressed in the design specifications of our building, and a recent sound audit shows that any external noise from cars will not be an issue. One of our members informs me that there are 23 churches in Orange in residential areas, very close to houses, most of them. And it would be very hard for us as a church to find a place for our building in Orange that would be further from residences than the one we're proposing at 241 Ploughman's Lane. Over the last 20 years, our church has been having services in Sunday evenings. We've been meeting in school halls in the middle of residential areas, and we've not had one complaint to us about our music or about our car doors slamming. For over 20 years, our church has been running a primary age kids club on Thursday afternoons in the Senior Citizens Centre initially, and now at the Orange Public School. And this allows parents from the Orange community to drop off their kids, go and do some shopping, get a meal in the local cafe, knowing that their children are well cared for. We were intending to do this in our new premises, but we won't be able to do that with these current operating hours. For more than 20 years, our church has been providing training for lay people, and not just for our church, but for other churches in the Central West. We run courses and help them in their study, knowing that country people don't have the same access as city people to this sort of assistance. We want to be involved in training country people from country churches to be trained in the country and to then go and serve in country churches. We don't think they should have to move to Sydney for this sort of training. We currently run those courses on Monday nights, and there's only about 6 or 10 people per semester on average that attend to that are enrolled, so small numbers. These are just a few of the things that our church would no longer be able to do if these hours are not amended. Obviously, we're heavily invested in the project, and we can't proceed at this stage until this is addressed. We want a good relationship with our neighbours and our council. We think that our request is reasonable, and we hope that you see it that way too and support this. Thank you very much for your time.
Very much. Our next speaker is might have pronounced this incorrectly, so I apologise. It's Keenan or Keenan Milham.
Thank you. It's Keenan.
Keenan, good on you. It's a different way of spelling it.
Yes, it is a bit funny. I would like to thank the Mayor and the councillors for hearing us tonight. I would also like to speak on behalf of Orange Evangelical Church. My name is Keenan. I grew up here in Orange. My family moved here in 1996 and I attended Bletchington Public School and then Orange High School after that. For the past 6 years, I actually lived in Sydney. I went away to study. But at the start of the year, I moved back to Orange with my wife as we started our family together. We wanted to start it here. My first involvement with Orange Evangelical Church was essentially as a toddler. And I would like to share some of what Orange Evangelical Church and the programs that they run has meant to me as a young person growing up in Orange. At base, this meant that being part of the church, I was meeting kids from all different kinds of families and schools and different areas and parts of town. And as I grew into the wider Orange community, this is something that I began to value and cherish quite deeply. Some of my closest friends were made in primary school, going to the Thursday night kids program called Adrenalites. 2 of them stood next to me when I got married earlier this year. And not even the fact that they eventually went to Kinross, the sworn enemies of Orange High School, could stand in our way. As I reached year 6 and headed into high school, a focal point of my life became Friday night youth group. Again, this is where a place where I was meeting and making friends with people from private schools, religious schools and other public schools in Orange. But I was also meeting older men and women who were giving up their Friday nights, their time, to come and spend time with us and to teach us. Shift workers, tradies, teachers, other professionals, they were giving up their time to invest in me and see me grow into a man. And this wasn't just a form of glorified babysitting. These people cared about the challenges that I was facing. They wanted me to think hard about responsibility, my place in the community, about work, about the choices I was going to have to make in life. These men and women have profoundly shaped my life. And while I was privileged enough to come from a home with both parents, I watched as many of my friends found role models in a place that welcomed them without judgment for the first time. It is funny coming back as an adult this year with my own family and seeing former youth leaders with children, maybe a grey hair or two, who still remember me and ask after me. They truly care about the next generation, and I personally am in their debt for it. Orange Evangelical Church was where I was first encouraged to pursue music and to use it in service of others. As a teenager, that would mean playing for the creche and the primary school kids on Sunday mornings or afternoons, and during various summer holiday clubs and camps that run throughout the year. It seemed natural to me then to use that and those skills and extend that to the wider community life. As a member of the Orange High School stage band, I would have played hundreds of functions around Orange, Anzac Day parades, the field days, opening ceremonies at the art gallery, fundraisers, award nights. The leaders and volunteers at OEC taught me to use what I have, the time and the skills that I've been given for others. I can see how this has continued in the years that I've been away. We have HSC students coming to training and small groups on weeknights, volunteering to help teach younger kids on the weekends and in holidays all throughout the year, giving their time and energy to serve others during one of the biggest years of their life. And it's because they've been taught and modelled that way. As I have come back to Orange to work and live with my wife, I see and remember the good that OEC has done in my life and in the community that I live in. And I consider it a distinct privilege to be able to give back as part of their ongoing service in Orange. Over the years, we've been moved to location after location, squeezed into people's houses for training courses and meetings during the week, forced to change venues and meeting times on the weekends. Friday night youth group has been in more school halls than I can remember. Orange Evangelical Church has been fundamental in growing me into the person that I am today, and I urge the council to enable me and the rest of the church to extend that opportunity to the young people of Orange for generations to come. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Keenan. Our next speaker is Alison Nelson from OEC also.
Mayor Kidd, Orange City councillors and members of the community. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today on behalf of my family as members of Orange Evangelical Church in regards to the proposed amendment to our church's operating hours. We always desired to live in a country lifestyle within a regional community, and we are thankful that we have found this in Orange. My husband and I moved to Orange almost 7 years ago from Sydney when the opportunity arose for my husband to establish his career within the Western New South Wales Local Health District. We made the move with our 2-month-old daughter at the time. We had no family living within Orange District and had limited connections. As I am sure you can all appreciate, having a small 2-month-old can be daunting and sometimes isolating, of which I found. This was also then compounded by the fact that we'd moved 3.5 hours away from all that we knew. It was during this time that we made connections with Orange Evangelical Church. There were people who opened their doors and homes to us. They included us in their dinner shenanigans, invited us to bonfires, introduced me to other first-time mums, and encouraged me to join playgroups. Over the 7 years of living in Orange, we have had 2 other children. As our family has grown, so too have the friendships that we've established at OEC. The support provided by the OEC community during my previous pregnancies and births is to be commended. We had people who would care for our children when I needed to go to the doctor or hospital visits. Meals were arranged and provided in the weeks post-births, and overall care for our family's emotional well-being. One of the few constants in life is change. As parents, we live this out on a daily basis. We know that our children are growing and will continue to grow as the years pass by. With this in mind, our church community, to myself and my family, is vital. As our children grow, we want them to continue to feel a sense of belonging in their church community. It will be through the various weekly programs, after-school activities, holiday programs and youth groups that our children will be able to develop their own sense of personal belonging. The proposed amendment to the operating hours would enable our church community to continue to provide these various activities which are invaluable to myself, my family and other families. Once again, I thank you for your time and thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my family.
Thank you very much, Alison. Next speaker is Michelle Blouse.
Mayor Kidd, councillors, council staff and guests. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I have children attending Orange Public School and Orange High School. I'm a member of the Orange Public School P&C, and I'm also a member of Orange Evangelical Church. Our church has used many venues over the past, I was going to say 15 years, but 20 years. And some of these venues include Orange Public School, Bowen Public School, Orange Anglican Grammar School, and the Orange Senior Citizen Centre. All of these venues are next to residential homes. We've always maintained good relationships with the venues and their neighbours. We offer different meetings at different times to cater for the diverse range of people and needs within the Orange community. Moving to our own building will enable us to continue these services to the Orange community, and we hope it will provide more opportunities to extend the work that we do for the community. Extended operating hours are key in allowing us the flexibility to run meetings and activities that are accessible to everyone. Kids Club has been mentioned already tonight. It's on Thursdays from 5:30 till 7:30. And it's a key activity for 9 to 11-year-olds. Some of the children who come along are needing stability and to belong to a caring community. It's a regular, safe, fun place that offers indoor games, dinner, and good teaching. Another activity, Church on Sunday night, offers an opportunity for people who are unable to attend during the day due to work, sporting commitments, travel, volunteer work, and other things. have a proven record as considerate and respectful neighbours, and we want to build our capacity to serve the Orange community through extended operating hours in a permanent building. I trust this helps to explain our reasons for our request. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Our next speaker is Paul Owens, and that's OEC also. Thanks.
We're nearly done. Thanks, Mayor and councillors. I'm one of the ministers at OEC. I just wanted to draw to your attention there is a petition in front of you from more than 330 of our members in support of this DA amendment this evening. And I've been told that there is 70 members, possibly a couple more now, from our church in support of this amendment as well tonight. Even though our church started in Orange in 1995, you might be wondering who we actually are. Evangelical simply means that we are Bible or gospel focused. We're in the mainstream of Protestant churches in Australia and very similar to our local Baptist or our Presbyterian church right here. And about 750 local residents from 0 to 100 would call OEC their church. Tonight, councillors have the task of assessing if our use of this site should be approved with extended hours, and especially to consider what our impact will be on our neighbours. And I think that is right and proper. As a Bible-focused church, we encourage people to follow the teaching of Jesus, who famously said, "Love your neighbour as yourself." And he set an example of doing just that when he gave his life up for his neighbours. We're a community group within Orange looking to establish a space that works for our people to gather together and to be a community. And I think community groups are something that we need more and more of, not just in Orange but around Australia. But as we do that, we want to follow the teaching and example of Jesus in loving our neighbours and, at the very least, not creating problems for our neighbours. I think this site allows us to do just that. Although it is in a residential area, there are no neighbours at all to the south due to council's wetlands. There's a wide road reserve to the west. There is a very long distance to the east to any housing. And to the north, the existing house that sits on our block sits between us and that neighbouring house. As well as this, the conditions of the DA require us to be a good neighbour. The building is designed to contain sound well, as demanded by the DA. The sound from the car park has been modelled, and the acoustic report shows that sound from there won't be an issue. The DA stipulates that there would be no congregational activities on the north of the house, and that area is the closest area to our neighbour. And the DA also stipulates a sound test to occur after we occupy the building, and if needed, will be required to fix any issues that exist then. The DA conditions do not in any way allow us to be a problem neighbour. Our largest meetings are our Sunday services, then our youth group and our separate primary age kids club are also large meetings. We are asking to be able to use the site until 10 p.m 7 days a week, but we won't have hundreds of people there every night. Some nights there may only be a handful of people, and it won't be used every night in the calendar year. There are details on that within the DA. The impact of our use of this site on our neighbours will have to be minimal, but our use of this site will mean the people of this local Orange church will gather together to share life's struggles and joys together, to raise kids and teenagers amongst a community, to hear the message of the Bible, where they will be encouraged to care for others. And no matter what you think of the historical claims of Christianity, another community group that meets together to look out for others has to be a good thing for Orange. So we would like to ask you to please follow the recommendations of council staff and approve this DA amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Our final speaker is Peter Campbell, and it's in relation to the service station at Lucknow.
I'd like to say thank you to the Mayor and councillors for the opportunity to speak about the service station. I'd just like to say that my wife and myself have never objected to the service station being there, but it's just the 24-hour operation that we're concerned about. And I believe we've had a massive win with that, which we're over the moon about. But I'd like to bring you up to date to a thing that happened quite a number of years ago with the service station and our driveway. It was a joint use driveway, and we found when it was busy we were lined up waiting for cars to be served with fuel before we could gain entry into our property. And I took this up with the council at the time, and on the proviso that I agreed to have the driveway put where it exists now, on the eastern side, they do the work and what have you. And I said, well, that's on the proviso that the service station operates in front of their own premises. Now, the RMS are changing the design of the highway for a turning lane to get into the service station, but I felt at the time that they didn't leave an avenue for us to gain entry or exit. And I met on site with Ian Greenham from the council engineering section, and he agreed with me, and that's why it was put on hold for a couple of weeks. I've been assured by the RMS now that we can use that zebra crossing part to gain entry to that and to wait for the oncoming traffic. But we still have a small issue about the slip lane, technical name for the driveway to the service station, which actually starts at a 45-degree angle across our driveway, which we've got concerns about. Like we contend with oncoming traffic from Bathurst direction, and I feel that we'll also be contending now with cars that are going to come across the front of our driveway to gain entry to the service station. I'd like to see that a council site inspection and RMS to discuss tweaking that a little. Maybe it can be moved a little bit further towards the service station, or something in the lines that maybe there's guidelines that the RMS have. It's got to be a certain length and so forth. But that's the only thing. As far as the rest of it goes, we're sort of over the moon that we've had a win in preference to it being a 24-hour service station. So that's about it for me, to be quite honest with you. And I'd just like to say and thank council staff for their updates and their help throughout this ordeal, because it has been a bit of an ordeal for us. So I'd just like the last part of that to be inspected and just see what we can sort out there. But apart from that, we're quite happy about the situation at the moment. So, alrighty, so I'd like to thank you.
Campbell.
I'd just like to ask Mr Campbell a question. How long ago did you sort of cut a deal with the council as regards to the access and moving that access? How long is that? There's obviously a fair bit of goodwill in that.
Look, I couldn't tell you the number of years, but Tim Sullivan was actually the mayor here then. So it's going back quite a long time.
Look,
1991.
Yeah.
91, is it?
Yeah. And I still believe that there's room there for the service station to operate in front of their own premises. Like our boundary at the front of it, like 2/3 of our boundary is square to the highway, and 1/3 of it juts back to come in line with the hotel and the service station. And they're going to cut that corner off where I have an issue with the stormwater's being run over. And I believe once that's cut off, they've got a multitude of room there to be able to gain entry. That is actually the entry point. The exit will be on the orange side of it.
Been assured by staff that they will follow that up for you in conjunction with our chairman of Turner. So we'll look that up for you for sure, and someone will be in contact with you.
Question, Mr Mayor. Campbell, you mentioned that you've had a win on the hours, but the application is still 24-hour application.
Well, the recommendation wasn't the recommendation by council 10 p.m.
Oh yeah, but the applicant had.
Right. So what's being recommended though, as far as on the council part of it?
Applied for 24 hours. That's his application. But he gets. Well, he's applied for 24 hours, Mr Chairman.
Councillors, this is not for debate now. We have a speaker. Give respect to the speaker. Thanks, Mr Campbell.
All right,
and our staff will be in contact with you.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
Council meeting will now resume, and we move on to item 3.1, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 16th of October. Councillor Hamling, a seconder. Nugent, all in favour? Yes, thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of Orange City Council held on the 17th of October 2018. Councillor Nugent, seconder. Councillor Privatera, all in favour? The council meeting now adjourns for the conduct of the policy committees, and first of all we have Planning and Development Policy Committee, Councillor Turner.
Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of Orange City Council. 1.1, declaration of pecuniary interest, and Councillor Kidd has already declared an interest in 2.4. Are there any other declarations? There being none, I go into 2.1, items approved under the delegated authority of Council.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a question, really. I mean, these DAs that are approved under delegation generally just sail through, which, in a sense, they should. I do have a question about on page 7, the DA 184/2018 number 1. That service station, it's a service station's removal of existing tanks and replacement. It's in Summer Street, very prominent position next door to Pizza Capers. I believe it's the BP service station. $900,000, so it's a fairly sizable development application. I'm just wondering, given the prominence of its position, when is the work likely to happen? What impact is it likely to have on local businesses, and how long is it likely to take? It's approved under delegation, so it's sort of not coming through the sort of public forum per se, but I'm just interested in some more details, if I could, please.
You, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, thank you. Yeah, indeed, it's something that could impact the main street for some time. They need to pull the underground tanks which had fuel in it. So the issue is they don't actually know how bad it is. They'll need to get in there, get the tanks out, and then chase contamination until it's clean. So then they'll go back and do all the new pumps and signage and whatnot. If it goes well for them, I would estimate that's probably a 3-month job at best, 6 months at worst. We've made sure that they're not going to be backtracking with vehicles onto Summer Street and holding up traffic or anything like that, remembering they've also got a back entrance there at a service station. So we would anticipate hopefully no huge concerns with this. There was one done on Bathurst Road up towards opposite Kinross in recent times. There's one, a good example is down here on Byng Street, which seems to be the eternal remediation, and indeed that's because they ran into problems.
Okay. No other questions? We'll go on to all those in favour of the items 2.1 being approved. Carried. 2.2 development application 241 Ploughman's Lane.
Move the instrument of approval.
Second it.
Moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion? Councillor Miletto.
The Evangelistic Church we're referring to?
Pardon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to speak in support of the DA and congratulate the council and the applicant in the way they work together with regards to this DA. In support of the DA, taking into consideration the applicant's effort in addressing some of the neighbours' concerns. In particular, I note that the applicant undertook an independent assessment with regards to noise. Although in some ways the results were inconclusive, mainly due to the fact that there was some background noise, etc. But my understanding is that the applicant also made attempts to reduce the acoustic noise within the building itself. So I congratulate them for doing that. Note that the main building is located approximately 50 metres from the western fence. In between where that building is proposed to be built, there's also an existing building, which I understand will be predominantly used for administration purposes. Also note that within the last 2 weeks that the applicant has built a colour-bordered fence has been erected on the western boundary to address any privacy concerns that the neighbouring resident may have had. I've listened to the people speak here tonight, and I fully support some of the programs that they're running for the children, the Adrenalites aimed at children aged between 3 and 5 years. Also note that the church also runs a number of other programs to assist troubled children, youth groups, or families in need, which I think is very important in this day and age. Some councillors have previously spoken with regards to antisocial behaviour. The applicant here is running what I would consider to be meaningful programs to curb this type of behaviour. I believe that the benefits in approving this DA in extension of hours far outweigh any perceived negatives. I just have a question to the Director of Development Services. I note that in the papers that the neighbouring residents, Christine and Jeffrey Ere, had an issue with regards to access from Ploughman's Lane, and I think that was shared access. Could you please provide an update as to what the current situation is with that?
Mr Chair, the consent requires traffic to go off Cargo Road to the church, and I think the neighbour's been satisfied in that regard. Won't he?
Okay, so that's been resolved?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Nugent.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Look, I'd just like to echo Councillor Miletto's comments in terms of the work that staff have done in brokering a deal, so to speak, in relation to this development application, the extension of hours. I think it's been a good job that has been done, and there's goodwill on all sides, which is fantastic to see. Growing up as the son of a Methodist minister and Uniting Church minister, and living next door to two churches in Manses, I have some experience of knowing how churches run, and I understand that this is not about having people there, hundreds of people there from 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, but allowing the flexibility for the church and the wider life of the church to operate at the times that they need to operate, and for people to gather at the times they need to gather. I do just have one question in relation to the condition 50 on page 19. Condition 50A, where it talked about the 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday, and there's that restriction in terms of no more than 40 people being on site between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m, which I think is a reasonable sort of compromise to allow activities to happen, but not huge gatherings. But point 2 there says does not apply up to 6 times per year. And so I suppose my question is, what is anticipated to happen 6 times per year? And maybe through you, Mr Chair, to the Director, what does that sort of condition sort of envisage?
It's in the spirit of being flexible, it allows the church up to 6 times a year to have bigger events, and I'm sure the management of those events will be appropriate.
So there's no set events, they're just...
I think that allows them the flexibility to
do that,
to do what they want to do there.
Okay, thank you.
I will note that Councillor Munro has now joined the council. Any other speakers?
Yeah,
Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Chair, and sorry for being late. But he's got to work.
Got a note. We've missed you.
I've got a naughty note. I'll give it to you later. Look, this is close to my heart. I think we should support churches in any way, shape or form we can. They do wonderful jobs for our community. They build our values and they do so much for our community that I feel that we have to support them wherever. I'll be supporting the application, and I'll be encouraging everyone else to do so.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chairman. I want to congratulate the church on coming forward with that. I enjoy the plan. I think it's a very good plan there. there's plenty of room. It's also well set away from anything else there. My only concern I've raised at the previous council meeting when we spoke about a future roundabout at Ploughman's Lane. I think it's the worst intersections we have in our city. But I do want to congratulate them along the fact that our societies throughout Australia was based on Christianity. It's what we got here today and what we're all about. And I think that's very important. Okay, I'm Catholic, so what? But we need a bit of opposition, so I'll support you 100%. So
yeah, the same God, Pete, Kevin.
But I do go to think, and I tend to think whether the mover is happy with this. I have a problem with condition 50, which says A, B and C with dot points 1, 2, and then on C it's got dot point 1. I mean, I don't know of any church, and as one of the speakers said, 23 churches in Orange. I've never seen anyone police call to anyone anywhere, like the ones that I've been involved in, coming to hunt them away because they're making too much noise. And it just, to me, it doesn't think. You look at them there, and they're just everyday people. Us, they're good, genuine, honest people. I mean, I don't have a problem with whether the mover of the motion wants to amend the motion to accept that. I'm quite happy to move an amendment if they wish. But
just explain to the rest of the council your condition changes, Councillor Duffy.
What may your amendment be?
I'm proposing the fact that, you know, why have we got that only 40 persons on site and only
I'll second it.
Do you want to move condition 50 altogether?
I mean, why is that there? I mean, they're not going to be rowdy whether it's 41 or 40, 28 or whatever the case may be.
The deletion of 50.
You want to
Proposing the deletion of...
I would propose the deletion of A, the dot point 1 and A, the dot point 1 and 2, which says about in relation to between 6 and 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday, no more than 40 persons. And does not apply to 6 times a year, and get rid of both those. And under C, in relation to C, between 9 and 10 p.m. Sunday, no more than 20 persons. I mean,
Mr. Chairman,
that apply to every other church in town? Of course it doesn't.
Point A dot I and A dot 2 and C dot 1. As the mover, I'm happy to accommodate his.
Yeah, and I second it.
As a second, I'm happy with that too.
Well, we can discuss it, but I understand the church has accepted that condition, so I don't know, I can't see any reason why it needs to be changed. The church have accepted that condition.
Make a decision, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, sure. Any discussion?
The motion be put, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, so what Councillor Duffy has, is that an amendment, or has Councillor Whitten accepted it into the motion?
No, it's not an amendment. It's he's asked, as the mover, I'm the mover, would I consider the deletion of those 3 points out of the... and through you, Mr. Chairman, I know I should stand up, my apologies, but the chair's relaxing, I apologise. I should clarify through you to the Director. Mr. Director, are we causing any problems with the DA application? Is it allowable to move those conditions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I was being conservative, I would say I would prefer to have 2 weeks to go away and talk to the Manager of Building and Environment and go through the noise report against this proposed change. Left wing, yes. And make sure that we do have a consent that's in line with the industrial noise policy. I would prefer to have those 2 weeks to come back to you and confirm that such an amendment would work.
We just leave it as it is, Councillor
Mr. Chair, I would think that the residents that are near there have written letters in deserve the opportunity to know that we're actually changing something major like that, rather than doing it here tonight. They've got no idea we're going to do that unless they're in the audience.
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
Personally, this has gone on, I believe, quite long, far too long. It's been debated on many, many occasions. There's been compromise. I would be violently or strongly against deferring it for another 2 weeks. Let's get on. The church have indicated they're happy with the conditions. Why not just leave them there, pass the motion to the recommendation tonight?
Can I suggest we put it as it is?
Do a goodwill.
The church has the opportunity, as does any church, to come back, or any for doing a development come back at a later day and asked change in those conditions. So put it through as it is now so they can get on with the work and so forth.
Agree.
And then later down the track, if they wish to, altering those times anyway, they'd come back to council. Simple.
The movement
Councillor
second
Happy.
Councillor Whitten has withdrawn his thoughts.
Happy with
Councillor
Duffy,
Duffy.
just trying to be a
I
good
will
Samaritan.
put the motion as written tonight. All those in favour? Carried unanimously.
Put an amendment on.
Right, thank you very much. You had me worried there for a little while, but common sense has prevailed.
Trying to hold it up again.
2.3, Mitchell Highway, Lucknow Service Station.
Mr. Chairman,
We have a recommendation. Councillor Duffy.
I'm going to move a recommendation that we defer it till we go out and have a site inspection, because I have real concern.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
I have a real concern about what Mr. Campbell came here and told us about 30 years ago when he made a thing. And then you're talking about blocking off his driveway with cars coming in different angles. I'm not 100% sure about what he's actually talking about, so I want to see it in action, what he's actually talking about, before so I can make an informed decision. Because I think when you go back 30 years and there's a lot of goodwill there, and he's an absolute champion person, he's acknowledged this as a great citizen. So let's support him and understand what he's trying to tell us. And I think that's where I stand with that.
I think that's the right move.
Councillor Miletto.
Yeah, I'd like to speak against the recommendation by Councillor Duffy. I'd like to hear from the relevant Director of Development Services, Mr. Waddell. I actually went there today. I know that some people weren't able to make it, but I went out there and done a site visit myself, as they explained certain things with regards to the DA. Based on what I've been told, I'll be supporting it, but I would like to hear what Mr. Waddell has got to say with regards to the latest update.
I mean, all I'll say, Mr. Gailey might want to, Mr. Chair, add as well, is that the RMS is in control of these DAs being on a highway. So council is, to some extent, a great extent, beholden to the RMS. I know the Director of Technical Services pulled this DA 2 weeks ago. He was concerned and he wanted to understand totally how this worked and that Mr. Campbell wouldn't lose access to his property, left or right, as he came out. My understanding is the RMS control how this works. Yet Mr. Campbell's issues dealt with, we'd have to have the RMS there. We'd have to probably ask the applicant to do a redesign, Mr. Gailey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. That is in effect a deceleration lane into the service station. The length of those deceleration lanes is calculated as a function of the posted speed limit. So it would need to go back to the RMS for any variation on that.
Councillor Chairman, I'm happy for that to occur because if you go out there and have a look, they're effectively putting a turning lane in a residential driveway. So they're effectively, if you look at Mr. Campbell when he drives in or out of his driveway now got to look for traffic coming in 2 lanes from the east and a person turning into to the station from the west across him. So if he wants to come out, he has to effectively look for traffic from 3 directions. And I agree with when he made the comment earlier tonight that why should he suffer from the business next door? Their business should be in front of their own business. Now, you've now got traffic lining up across his driveway. And if there are trucks to be going in there, they're going to be back up across his private access into his home. So, and I'm no police officer, but I might refer this to an ex-police officer, but isn't it against the law to actually drive across virtual islands? They're there for, aren't they? You're not allowed to drive on a virtual island because I've heard of people being booked for it. But again, I'm not a police officer.
Mr. Chair, that was the very issue Mr. Greenham wanted to check, and apparently he's checked it, and the RMS said that Mr. Campbell can actually stand on those, hold on those islands to make his turn. But, an inspection, that may make it more clear.
Councillor Mileto.
Just whilst we're on the RMS, I know that their response is that they've made comments with regards to the line markings, advertising, signage, etc. And the RMS touched on the issue of road safety. However, I can't see any reference made in these documents with regards to traffic speeding, which currently set at 60 kilometres per hour. A letter which is provided in these documents by Mr. Mick Bloomfield, he advised that he had attended approximately 8 motor vehicle accidents in that restricted area. I'm also personally aware of that there have been a number of accidents that have occurred at the intersection of Phoenix Mine, Beasley Road, at the intersection of Mitchell Highway. I guess my question to you, Mr. Waddell, is taking into consideration that Lucknow is a small village, also the fact that there have been a number of tourist attractions such as the Wentworth Mine and the Reform Mine, which create interest for tourists and elderly people who are elderly pedestrians, I should say. There were also the fact that there are a number of turning lanes, as highlighted by Councillor Whitten and Duffy. Has there been any discussion between Orange City Council and the RMS regarding any possible reduction in a speed limit from 60 kilometres to 50 kilometres in that area? I noticed that the council and the Lucknow Community Committee, which I'm also the chair of, have been currently speaking and working on those issues, and also to update footpaths out there so it's adequate for pedestrian traffic, etc.
The simple answer, Mr. Chair, is no. I'm trying to rack my brains as to what the speed limit in Lucknow was until recently. 50. It was 50 and it went up to 60. But certainly, Councillor, as part of this development, there has been no discussion of raising or dropping.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Look, I agree with what Councillor Mileto and Councillor Whitten are saying as far as this is concerned. I spoke to Mr. Campbell about this issue many months ago, and I gave him my word at that point in time that I would support him, and so he is satisfied that his concerns are addressed. He's indicated very clearly tonight that he's not against the development per se itself, but he still does have some concerns, underlying concerns there. So I think that I really don't feel comfortable just taking, an official of the RMS's word to say, look, you can sit on that island there. Don't worry about it. I think we
tell
need
the bloke in the Commodore.
Yeah, tell the bloke who's got the car with the flashing lights. Yeah. So I've got concerns about that. I'd rather see this be resolved before we give it the final tick. The other thing I am concerned about, and I know that Mr. Campbell has indicated that he's very happy with the outcome of it, but I really do think we need to ram home to the proponents about the operating hours from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m, and that is what council are permitting. The Campbells have indicated they are happy with that time, but like all things, and we spoke about conditions earlier, I mean, conditions are no good if you're not going to enforce them. So I'm sure Mr. and Mrs. Campbell will be keeping very close eye on what the operating hours are. The council again, and I said this with the proposal up in Byng Street a few weeks ago, council are putting their faith in the proponent that they will do the right thing by the neighbours, the Campbells, as far as those operating hours are concerned, and I certainly would advise them to do the right thing, because I, for one, if I hear that they're not sitting by those, I certainly would be the first one to assist the Campbells in any way I can to ensure that they are strictly adhered to. Let's resolve this issue as far as the turning lane is concerned. I support the fact that Campbell said that the business needs to operate in its own boundaries, and I do support that. And having that slow down lane there in his driveway, as has been indicated, now he has to not only look at the oncoming traffic in the main lane of the highway, but also the RMS did 50 kilometres an hour the speed limit at Lucknow. And the RMS, for some unknown reason, all of a sudden came along and said, no, it's up to 60. Now, in the Orange local government area, we'll all know the fact that in residential areas, it's 50. Everywhere in the Orange local government area, bar Lucknow. And all of the councillors here, I'm sure, would be aware. Bathurst, if you enter into Bathurst, the residential areas, 60. So effectively, if you're coming into Lucknow, you're at 100, you go back to 80, then you go back to 60. You go back up to 80, then you go back in where the Northern Distributor Road reaches at 80, you come back into Orange and you come back to 50. So you've got 4 to 5 speed zones. It's just a joke. And, look, all we want them to do is be uniform. Orange local government area, residential build-up areas, 50 kilometres an hour. It makes sense to me.
Councillor Taylor, any other speakers? I understand the amendment is for deferral for a site inspection to be arranged when a RMS official
Can I
is
just clarify
available
that?
as well.
I thought the motion was for deferral.
Yep.
Right, not the amendment.
Okay, so that's a motion. Okay, so the motion is for deferral and a site inspection. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor Prevatira voted against. 2.4, Councillor Kidd has declared an interest, 185 to 193 Bathurst Road. Do we have...
Move, Mr Mayor.
Seconded.
Kidd, number of others left. I assume Councillor Kidd is out of the room by now. Been moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Miletto. Any discussion?
Just quickly, Mr Chairman, as a lifelong resident of Orange, it certainly holds a lot of historical value out there. Particularly I spent my days out there at Tucci's Head. And it's and CBN 8, of course. So it holds a lot of significance to people, but I do understand that times move on. The building has been left vacant for many, many years now. And Prime Television did a very good story on it last night, and they did point out, and they did a great job of it, and they did point out that that the building has been vandalised inside, but it does certainly historical significance. I'd like to think there's extensive photographs there, but there will be photographs and so forth that will be retained as far as the historical records. Times do move on.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any other discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. That completes Planning and Development Committee meeting, and I call on the Mayor, if we'll go and find him, to conduct the rest of the meeting.
No. Employment and Economic Development.
Economic Development. Councillor Miletto.
Councillor Miletto.
Okay. Joey's.
As I'd say in Peru. They say hula. Hula, senora. Senor.
Been looking for El Dorado, have you?
I rode a horse, which I shouldn't have. At the time now being 8:05, I'll declare that the meeting open for the Economic and Development Policy Committee meeting. First item is declaration of peculiar interest, significant non-peculiar interest and less than significant non-peculiar interest. Any councillor would like to disclose any conflict of interest made under consideration by the Employment and Economic Policy Committee at this meeting? There being no conflicts of interest, we'll then move on to item 2.1, being the minutes of the Economic...
I'll move them.
Second them.
Moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Munro. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Yeah.
Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr Chair. I just have a question arising really in relation to the OC Future City project. which we had a briefing on, and there's been various briefings, I think, in relation to that project, which is an exciting project for the city. I look forward to its implementation. I suppose I've got two questions about it. One is that most of the focus seems to be on, things south of Anson Street, from up to Anson Street and south. My reading of the project ideas, concepts, and I happy to be corrected on this, that there's not a lot envisaged in the planning so far for things north of Anson Street. So that's one question. Can that just be clarified? And the second one is in relation to where to from here. We've had, I think, one community forum which was very well attended and some great ideas proposed. We've got money, $10 million set aside for this, and we're seeking funding, obviously, from state and federal governments. But this year is just about gone. Coming into the Christmas period, when do we start to see the next stage in these proposals happening? So those two questions, if I could, through you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. The meeting, which is held on the 9th of September, the Director of Corporate and Commercial Services, Mr. Mark Burdak, was kind enough to come along and give an excellent presentation with regards to the AOC Future City update. I might direct that question to Mark now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the focus, a lot of the community commentary that came through the consultation process was certainly around the south of the Central Business District. But the brief in terms of the tender for master planning covers the whole of the core CBD, and we anticipate that consultations that will be undertaken by the consultants, that they'll address the overall operation of the CBD as a whole, taking into account the particular areas where the community indicated they thought there might be opportunity. In relation to the second question, there is money budgeted in council's budget as a co-contribution against state or federal funding. An application has been made to the state government for funding for part of the project, and there is another project for some infrastructure from the federal government. The determination of whether the project goes ahead this year, financial year, will be dependent upon whether or not that funding comes forward to match the council's contribution. So we'll make an assessment once the Growing Local Economies funding round has been completed, and the Smarter Cities funding round has been completed to determine.
Just a follow-up question. Do we have an indication of the timing of those processes?
My expectation, the answer is no, but my expectation is that at a state government level, we are anticipating a response by the end of this year. And at the federal government level, similarly, maybe towards the end of this year, could possibly be stretched.
Even though we've got two elections potentially, but if we hear something before then. Thank you.
The recommendation is that the minutes of the Economic Development Community Committee held on the 9th of September 2018 be adopted. We have a mover and a seconder. A show of hands of all those in favour. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion with regards to that, or any further business? I'll close the meeting at 10 p.m. I now welcome the Chair of the Infrastructure Committee, Councillor Romano, to the chair.
Thank you, Councillor Miletto. Yeah, I'd like to open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting the 7th of November, at the time being approximately 10 past 8. Once again, declarations of interest. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? The answer is no. Move on to Section 2, Committee Minutes.
I'll move those minutes, Mr Chair.
Moved by Councillor Kidd. Have a seconder. Councillor Nugent. Item 2.1, the minutes of the Floodplain Risk Management Committee meeting of the 8th of October. There's a recommendation on page 5. Any discussion on this item? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Section 2. Item 2.2, minutes of the City of Orange Committee meeting of the 9th of October. There's a recommendation on page 19. Moved by Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion on this item?
I have a question, Mr Chair.
Councillor McRae.
Look, my question is, I notice it's an electronic meeting. Now, this is the first one I've come across in my time in council, so I'm just wondering, what is that? Is it discussion by email? Is it a live stream, a Skype, in person? I'm just wondering, out of interest, what it is, and is that an opportunity open to other committees if it's appropriate?
Mr Gailey. Okay, so we're right with that, Councillor. There's no more discussions. I'll put the motion on item 2.2. All in favour? Carried. Moving on to section 3, general reports.
I'll move that, Mr Chair.
Moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Nugent once again. Recommendation on page 23. I've got the mover and seconder. Any discussion on this recommendation? Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Just a question arising, or a question from a member of the community about the Southern Feeder Road and the overpass over the railway line as part of stage. I can never keep track of which stage is. Stage 2. Thank you. Stage 2. Will that have a bike path is my question, because the proprietor of the Smoko shed leads rural area indicated to me that a lot of Wangarang clients, workers, ride their bikes from East Orange and come across the railway line currently, and I'd hate to see their access to be able to get from home to work curtailed in any way when the railway crossing gets closed. I'm not sure whether that's the intention. I thought that was the intention for the existing railway crossing to close once the overpass is built, and will there be a bike path as part of that?
Through you, Mr Chair, there will be a bike path on the northern side of the road and bridge, so full width off-road provision.
Will that be like a dedicated path, or separated from the road, or just a line marking as per a lot of the other bike paths around Orange?
It'll be separated.
Right. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Yeah, Councillor Duffy.
I just got a quick question. I noticed there in one of the reports there it says that the current works in the report says about leaking hydrants, leaking things. But I just wonder whether we're coming into summer, it's going to be fairly hot again this year, where we've hit 30 degrees already, how our fire hydrants are going. Are they ready and raring to go, or what's the story? Could we have a report coming back to say what state they're in? What happened a few years back?
Certainly put in.
Yep, okay. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, Mr Chairman, on the Southern Distributor Road, where are we up to as far as lobbying for the remaining sections of the Southern Distributor Road? We do have an state election coming up. Snowy Hydro's $4 billion be distributed in regional areas. Poles and wires have been long ago sold. We don't seem to be seeing a lot of money coming our way. I don't think it's a big ask with some of the dollars that have been flowing to Bathurst and Dubbo recently that we could ask the government for the completion of the Southern Distributor, particularly as part of that $4 billion Snowy Hydro, which I'm informed is needs to be linked with infrastructure, which would encourage economic development. Certainly that will be the case. and also where are we up to as far as lobbying the state government as far as contributions towards the maintenance and repairs of the Northern Distributor Road. I know we had extensive debate about this. State government seemed to have wiped its hands, but anyone who wants to take a trip out there and have a look any time of day, night, start counting the trucks. Trucks are certainly not traffic that's been originated in Orange. We are currently carrying the state government's traffic road. That is unambiguous. That is a fact. The traffic movements that are on that Northern Distributor now are incredible. Day, night, weekends, during the week. And I don't think, given the fact that we have contributed over $6 million towards the hot mixing of the Northern Distributor Road, that it's a big ask that we are included as far as maintenance and repairs to that particular road. Also, where are we up to as far as the funding for the roundabout on the continuation of Hill Street, part of the Northern Distributor, but which is a vital piece of infrastructure as far as access to the northern suburbs of this city. And I think that's also something that should be, whether it will be or not, but should be considered as far as the Snowy Hydro money is concerned. I'd remind the current government that the Northern Distributor Road was funded by the previous Carr-Scully government, and the section to the highway was funded by the Rudd-Gillard government. So it's about time, I think, they kicked the can a little bit, if they're hoping to win the seat back, made a bit of a contribution towards that Northern Distributor, because it's carrying their traffic.
Yeah. Daly, yeah. To that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Start with the Southern Feeder Road. Stage 2, which is over the railway line, has been fully funded through various grants, fixing country roads through Restart New South Wales, congestion and safety funding through the RMS, and the Heavy Vehicle and Safety Productivity Program, which is a federally funded program. So that's fully funded from Huntley Road to Elsham Avenue. Stage 3, which is Elsham Avenue to the highway, Derry Creek Road and Blowes Road, the upgrade of those roads. Council has secured 50% of the funding required to build that road, again through the Heavy Vehicle Safety and Productivity Program, the federal government program. And we have an application in with the growing local economies state-funded program, which we hope to hear back on that very soon. So that same section, stage 3, from Elsham Avenue through to the highway. Yep. So stage 4 from Anson Street through to Pinnacle Road. So that, again, we've secured 50% of the funding for that through the Resources for Regions program, and we'll be looking to try and supplement that with grant funding. You have to balance state funding with federal funding. They seem to work on a 50-50 basis there. So we'll be looking for federal funding to match that funding that we've already secured through the state.
Thank you, Mr. Garley.
So with the Northern Distributor Road, we have received advice about 12 months ago now from the RMS that they will consider upgrading the Northern Distributor Road to a regional road status, which means that they will co-contribute to the running costs, the ongoing maintenance costs and upgrades of that road through their repair grant programs and their block grant funding, as they do now. But the discussion with the officers at Parks is that that process doesn't happen in 5 minutes. In fact, it would have been 10 years plus since they've actually done a review of their regional roads. So whilst they put it on the table, it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. Now, We go on to the Hill Street funding. That's the Hill Street, William Maker Drive and Northern Distributor Road. Council was invited to put in for an expression of interest under Resources for Regions funding for 50% funding of that project. We were successful there and were invited to put in a full submission, which we did last Friday for that project. So we're looking to secure 50% of the funding for that through that program.
That's a federal program?
Resources for Region is a state Restart New South Wales.
Is that funded under Snowy Hydro?
Or Poles and Wires?
Poles and Wires.
One of those.
Right. Councillor Hamling.
Mr Chair, just want to make a positive comment about I had to go out to the hospital last night and how good Forest Road looks, especially with the softball bit there where the people can go in and park and not have any problems about backing onto the road there. And just a question, with the roundabout that Councillor Duffy was talking about at Ploughman's Lane, where is that part of the roadworks happening on the cargo, or is that totally separate?
No, that's separate.
Are we in for funding for that as well, or are we at a planning stage? Whereabouts is that one? I agree that corner is a bit of Russian roulette there in the mornings.
It's very bad.
It's a chicane sort of thing if you're coming out of Ploughman's and then going back down that other way. So,
yeah, if I had to say, I would say it's still an early planning phase. There's no applications in for that at this stage.
Thank you.
Councillor Munro.
I thank Councillor Taylor for his question because it certainly been answered very well, and off to staff for their diligence in the way they do their job in regard to getting funding. All I can say is thank you and keep up the good work and keep pushing hard to get the government funding. We do have a great opportunity in the next 12 months, 18 months with elections and the rest of it to get promises.
6 months.
Both of them. Federal end, yeah. Anyway, so keep pushing and thank you for your hard work.
No further...
Mr Chair, if I may just pass on, at the Health Liaison Committee on Monday, everyone was complimenting the work that's being done out hospital and how everyone's worked in. You know, there was a bit of people concerned at the time, but with any major work, there's going to be some disruption. But it has really worked. And one of the things that was pointed out to me, even though we had they can go out Huntley Road, hardly anyone uses that Huntley Road entrance. Remember, everyone will want to. Number one, and number two, how they believe it's going to work well. And you know, there was a lot of people screaming out it should be. Well, you don't want too large hospital, I can guarantee you that. That's one, but also in the report here, just emphasise again just what an incredible job the people of Orange are doing with their use of potable water. That's an incredible low rate of potable water. And it'd be interesting to see what the second and the third lowest potable water is in Australia. I'll bet you we're about 30 litres. Any other Australia, and that's a result of those education campaigns. And if you look at, we're well above that 50%, and we've got raining now, and that's why we can still do it. Now, it says in the report we may have to go down, but that rate, and now just the odd showers and some storms, highly unlikely that we will.
Councillor Miletto.
Just with regards to the issue of water, I'm just wondering, with that deluge which we had on Friday night, was any of that water harvested?
It would be.
Yes.
Councillor Duff.
Thanks, Mr Chairman. I want to give back up a little bit what Councillor Taylor's saying, but listen, on top of what with poles and wires and I think we've got a mine sitting out there where the government's nearly collected, I would say over the years, $2 billion. The coffers, and not much has come here. I'm just wondering if the General Manager could give us a list of what Dubbo's got over the last 4 or 5 years, or the last 8 years, and what Bathurst has got. Because isn't it wow, they give us 50% funding for their road which they use. That really good for me. I don't carry politics in here, but I can tell you, mate, I can assure you don't. It's like you want to hear Sir Lunch-a-Lot, which you've seen. And the reason why I'm not a member of the Labor Party is because of Steady Eddie O'Bean. Listen, let's look at the fact here. Isn't it fantastic? Let's get both the candidates in there if the National Party can find one somewhere. Or if they look around, have a look and think. Let's get both here and ask the question of what they're going to get and what we are going to get. How much money is involved in stage 2, 3, 4 and 5 and the NDR to fix them up? But we've got the road out towards, we've got the Ploughman's Lane, which is an absolute mess, and the roundabout's other thing, and we've got a single lane bridge across to the Christian school over there. They're all things that need fixing up now. Not in 5 or 10 years' time, whatever it is. We need it now. Look at Parks and Dubbo. One of them's got a fully funded bypass up there. We went over to Albany, fully funded by the federal government. A 2-lane, a dual lane thing, same distance to this one here. Not an ounce coming from local government. Let's see what we're going to get in here for what we actually want. I'm just wondering whether the General Manager can give us something like that. So when the time comes, we want to actually know. Because as I've said plenty of times here, Paul Toole coughs down there and out comes millions. It does. It does. So they got $7-8 million for the sports ground down there. So I want to know why are we missing out? Because I can tell you, this one has been the worst government for this we've ever had for the Orange LGA for the dollars coming here.
Vote 1, Kevin Duffy.
Discussion. Any further discussion, Councillor?
Just one little thing, if I could. Yeah, I noticed going along the the Northern Distributor Road. I wonder if we could implement something to clean it up, because it's quite. Here we are, tidy towns and all this, and we won last year, and it's beautiful. That's other than
Northern.
Built Southern one yet.
I'm a bit tired, sorry. If you go along there and you have a little look, quite a lot of rubbish. I wonder if we could, ask Wangarang or something to get along there, or I don't know. But we need to be able to do something, because it is quite filthy.
Area, Councillor Munro. Area. About the way.
On the Northern, if I could just speak on the same road, I've got concerns there that there's steep descents in sections of that road. There's very steep culverts, whereas if a vehicle was pulled over by the police, for example, could easily dip into that deep hole. So I raised this a while back, whether it can be filled in with something, maybe even bark or something that won't flow away. I am concerned when I drive. I think if you do take the time to have a look yourself, you will see what I'm talking about. It's very dangerous if someone needs to pull over because they get a tyre blowout. I think if you're not careful, particularly at night, you'll end up turning sideways. So perhaps that could be taken as a.
We might do those requests.
Yeah, thank you.
Just a question to the General Manager. Do we have Wangarang doing any work for us at all?
In recent years, but we certainly have in earlier time here.
You too. Tidy town stuff.
I just think it'd be a wonderful thing to be able to get that implemented, because it'd clean the city entrance up, on the bypass, and I just think it really needs to be done. So either council staff or get some else to do it.
There's no further discussion. I'll put. You want to speak? You want to? No. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. It closes the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting at 8:30, and I call upon Councillor Hamling to conduct the Sports and Recreation.
I'll open the Sport and Recreation Community Committee at 8:30. And are there any declarations of interest? No. I'll move on to item 2.1, which is committee minutes.
The recommendations, Mr. Chair.
It's the minutes of the Showground Community Committee meeting. I'll move by the Mayor, Councillor Kidd. By Councillor Munro. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Item 2.2, it's minutes of the Australia Day Community Committee held on the 3rd of October. Moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Whitten. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the minutes. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. I'll move on to 3.1, which is general reports. Seconded by Councillor Romano, seconded by Councillor Munro. Councillor Romano.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to ask if, well, this is a great report, by the way, if Council could look at funding this in the next quarterly review, just to put it up for the next quarterly review. It's not a large amount of money involved.
That's you're moving that council resolve to acknowledge it and to consider it the next quarterly review.
I'll second that.
Option 1 or 2?
Option two. I don't know what the other councillors think, but certainly option 2. I'm surprised of how small the amount of money is required to actually get this indoor archery up and running. Great report. I think it's Mr. Maunder. Absolutely fantastic report.
Councillor Nugent.
So, Mr. Chair, thank you. Look, I was going to ask a question about what happens from here with the report. I'm happy to acknowledge the report, and I actually personally favour, if we're going to do this, I favour option 2. I think that's a better option, to have a permanent, something permanent that just be moved across, not moved in and out all the time. But I do have a question about the demand for this. My understanding from reading the report, we don't have a local club. I'm happy to be corrected there. And also, we have a Sport and Recreation Community Committee where there's been an extensive prioritisation process go on in relation to various funding requests from various clubs. And this process, great that is raised here, but it's bypassing that process. So if we're going to consider it in terms of the quarterly budget review, and perhaps we should be looking at it in relation to the budget for 2019-2020, and I understand we're having a briefing next week about that, so maybe that's an appropriate time to talk about it. But let's look at this option in relation to all of those other priorities that have been discussed quite extensively by the community.
Councillor Munro.
I wonder if we could put expressions of interest out to the schools, because I feel it would be a great elective for kids to do some sort of thing like that. I reckon it would be well utilised. Write a letter to all the schools and see if there was any interest from the sports teachers in the schools as far as...
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, look, I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that's outside the square, and I think it's something that we should be pursuing. I mean, $14,000 is not going to break the bank. I think it gives Orange and offers Orange another sporting facility. I think you'll be amazed by the interest that'll be shown in, and we do. We have a bow hunters club. We have a bow hunters club in Orange, and the bow hunters, I'm sure, will appreciate a facility like this that they can use indoors, particularly in the winter months in Orange. And I just really don't understand if we've got a facility like this put up. It's $14,000, yeah. $14,000 is $14,000, but it's going to provide this community with yet another sporting facility. I don't know why we have to, why do we have to always look at things with the glass half empty instead of half full? Let's do it. And if the General Manager can find those funds in the quarterly review, let's get on with it and do it. I think it's excellent. When I read the report, I thought it was an excellent price. Yeah, let's do these things. Let's try and provide more services for them, more opportunities and recreational activities for the community at a quite a modest price. And it is used, Mr. Chairman. One thing that really appeals to me about this is it uses that facility out at the showground. It gives it more of a purpose than just being a pavilion a couple of times a year. So it's utilisation of that, it's multi-use of that particular facility. The facility itself will benefit from the infrastructure and the work that's done to it. Let's get on and do it.
Any other speakers? Okay, well,
Is to acknowledge it and to
Move the motion.
Sorry, can I have the full motion read out, please?
it's to acknowledge it and also consider it in the first quarterly.
Option 2.
Resolution is the council resolved to acknowledge the report on the Olympic archery requirements. Next quarterly review.
So then a question, the next quarterly review is a review of the current year's budget.
Okay, so that'll cover...
When is it? Yeah, sorry.
After the end of... That would be with a view... of
Can I request then that when that report comes, that we also look at what other projects are on the current prioritisation list? Or
what's the point of this?
Point of order. Councillor Nugent's got the floor.
a motion to that effect that I attach the priority established by the committee.
Yes, can I request that be part of the report? Why?
Got a motion in front of us. You understand how the chamber works,
Councillor Whitten. Councillor Whitten.
Councillor Whitten, for your lecture again.
Councillor Whitten.
Yes, you can request it. Yes, you let the list from the
Okay, thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Against? Do you want your name recorded or anything? Okay.
Mr. Chair, just before we finish, can I just acknowledge the great work Ben Keegan and all the crew have actually done. Just over the last couple of months, there's been two major events here. One was the netball. That was all the academy squads here. But just recently we had the state under-13 man and women's indoor hockey championships. Rough estimates, siblings and players over 4 days. Every bit of accommodation was booked out in Orange over those 4 days, and a lot of people were camping. Lots around, and feedback and getting around Orange over that weekend, there wouldn't have been a restaurant Orange or a pub that wasn't full over that Friday, Saturday and Sunday night. And just incredible the amount of money that brings into the economy. We keep getting a hiding that we're only food and wine. We forget about, just in the last 6 months, and we've had the hockey, got water polo coming up, running things early in the year, bicycle events, 1,000 people. Money brought back into the Orange economy because the people staying here, doing all right on the event. And someone said to me the other day, an interesting one, okay, like at a football game. Sounds good. Here for one night and most people drive home. Right. I'll be here for the game. I spend a bit of money but usually go home. Have a 3 or 4 day event like that indoor hockey. 4 days. Accommodation, meals, petrol and everything. What one is worth more? City. Quite interesting. Have a look how much money we actually had to put into getting the indoor hockey and the netball versus some of the other large amounts of money. Go grovelling on our knees to actually try and get them.
Ask the
I
question,
suppose,
please.
Mr. Chairman, just on following on from the Mayor, and I know it's not in our council boundaries, but the
Sorry,
Millthorpe Ramble for the gardens, amount of people, we do that every year. Went out to Millthorpe on Saturday and Sunday to do it, and people come from all over the state to do it, and they stay in Orange, they eat out at Millthorpe, and yeah, I have to concur with the Mayor. It's not all about food and wine, even though food and wine is a big draw card. Certainly the sporting attraction coming to Orange and our beautiful gardens around the whole area, so in the botanical gardens and our parks, except for that storm we had on Friday night that took out a few trees.
Councillor Munro.
Look, I was just going to bring up and ask a question really in regard to the bike out at Canobolas. Bike leaves station, have it now or later, it doesn't matter, on where we're up to and how we're going for funding. Is there any, are we going forward with it? Where are we?
So the mountain bike park at Mount Canobolas, I did a request for funding with the state government for that. In regard to approval, it's a New South Wales National Parks process now to assess those. Recommendation as to
a question while you're there. Work done on protecting Aboriginal artefacts or areas up there that had any discussion with how we can help very important question. I'd like that answered.
that the Aboriginal community obviously is aware of them. I'd have to get information on the specific.
Okay, I just want to make a couple of comments from the chair. Last couple of weeks, the hockey centre has been vandalised unbelievably on one occasion where they broke in. They trashed the indoor hockey centre. They removed the defibrillator and threw it outside. They spray painted all their trophies. Last Saturday night, I think they tried to set the turf on fire in one of the corners of the hockey centre. So myself and the Mayor met with, and Scott and Ben met with the President and the Secretary and another lady from the hockey. And I would like to move from the chair that we could allocate up to $15,000 for more security at that hockey centre.
Second it.
What my question would be, is it enough? I mean, is it CCTV or what the situation?
We do have a CCTV up there at the moment, and today we got some good that it was actually working when these. It's on one part of the scoreboard. The alarming of the premises and the back to base monitoring that hasn't been in place. So if we can help them get that all sorted, and maybe some more CCTV around the centre. So, but the damage that's been caused up there, and then the volunteers, they're ploughing their money into fixing all this, where they'd be rather ploughing their money into upgrading the facilities. So just going on where it is, I just think it's a start for us to show some goodwill and try to cure it for them.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've got two things. The first one is that Councillor Turner's always been on about is the bike.
Are you talking about what I'm talking? Because I've moved the motion.
I'll put the motion.
I think it's a fantastic idea to support the hockey centre and the many volunteers who've put in many hours. As a former hockey player, not only have I been involved in some of the working bees up there, not so much in recent years, but I've also been one of the players playing on the field when people have thrown things from across the fences. I've been one of the coaches picking up pieces of glass. So while I commend that we look at improved security, I think we also need to look at how we can work with the local residents and particularly ensure that it's not a place that's separate to the community there. But the CCTV has got to go a long way to protecting what we have and can be an opportunity for us to start that conversation about more inclusion, more activity, and perhaps a range of activities used in that precinct rather than just hockey played on that turf surface. So I commend you on that motion and look forward to it being put into action.
Well, just on following on from that, I understand the Glenroy Community Group met, and I'm heading to their next meeting because they're talking about activities on Glenroy Oval. So we can see what we can do. I suppose one of the things we will have to have a conversation about is that laneway that's been closed. That's something that we're all going to have a conversation about at some stage again. Councillor Wyndham.
You support your motion, Mr. Chairman, but just on another matter, and I suppose this needs to be referred to your Crime Prevention Committee, is the fact that we probably need to get behind the local police command in lobbying for more police officers, because when you speak to them, the amount of I suppose activity that's going on around Orange at the moment, and they're just understaffed. Like, you just can't keep throwing more police at, but you have to, because there are a lot of activities that are going on, and they seem to be more reports struggling to keep up with, and a lot of it's minor stuff, but the police have to attend to it, right? They have to attend from everything from, I've heard stories where they ring 000, people that are drunk ring 000 to get a lift home. And they have to send officers out to make sure that the person is, there's a term for it, I suppose, and Leto probably knows it really well, but like a duty of care thing, you know. So they're dealing with major crime issues, but they're dealing with every type of, anybody who rings 000 for any matter, the police have to look into it, you know.
I could ask the commander that at the...
Yeah, so I don't know, at another time we need to talk about putting a motion towards your committee to support the local command in getting more officers.
With the motion be put.
Councillor Leto.
I've just got a question on notice, but I might just let you deal with this motion first before I do that.
Just put this
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against. Carried. Councillor Leto, I'll come back to you, Councillor Duff. Your second.
Thank you. Just with regards to crime, and as councillors would be aware that an incident occurred last week out there at Spring Hill, where a number of the red oak trees were stolen. It's been speaking about goodwill, etc. Now, those red oak trees which were stolen were planted by the local Spring Hill Community Committee, which I'm also the chair of, and there are a couple of councillors here, McRae and Privatera, who are also part of that. And it was really disappointing to hear that, because we've been working really hard as a small village community, and to hear that somebody had actually stole those trees, which money was allocated from council. We received a grant of about $24,000 to contribute to those planting of trees, etc. I guess my question to council is this, is we speak about goodwill, and rather than have to hit the Spring Hill budget again, where we've already exhausted that, because we're looking at putting some barbecue facilities there with regards to tables, chairs and some other stuff. I'm just wondering whether council would entertain the idea of replacing those trees that have been stolen with no cost, or not coming out of the Spring Hill budget, which we've already exhausted at this point in time.
Right committee for that?
That's why I...
Probably
what I was leading on from was we were talking about crime, and etc. I did say it was a question without notice. So if it's not a suitable time to raise it, well, we can do it another time.
Could I, through you, Mr. Chair, to suggest that perhaps we take that away and bring back a report to the next meeting?
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to go back to what Turner's been raising for a number of times. Looking at what the situation over there with where the netball courts are and the hockey and things like that. Council requested that group come and talk to us about the bike and that. What's the story with that there? Where are we at with those? Had any reply? Any?
We've written to understand are associated with the.
I think we bring it back into the chamber and have a good hard discussion about it, because I know the netballers and a few other organisations are screaming out for more room and more things, and it's growing enormously. But my other question is regards to when you look at what the hockey situation are going through there and over there, and the social impacts over there. Where are we at with the sporting precinct, whether it be tennis or hockey or whatever? Where are we at with that, and when can we expect that committee to meet of Councillor Hamming, Romano, and myself as regards to where that is actually at? Because it's been going for nearly 12 months now, and we haven't had we're in November, December, nothing will happen. January, February, nothing will happen much, and then the election's on. And the intent of that whole thing was we wanted detailed costings of what was going to cost, so we could put pressure on whoever's running in this chamber and talk to them and say, we want money. We want our share, as Councillor Taylor was talking about earlier on, and I don't care who gives it to us.
Scott? Yeah.
The councillors will recall that we had a couple of briefing sessions on what we wanted. The process from that was that we would engage conduct a site analysis to determine last meeting that expecting a final report on that site analysis. For and it had get on with development.
So my further question, I'll go back to what my question was first, is why can't the director or the general manager have a meeting between myself, Councillor Romano and Councillor Hamley as to regards to where we're at with it? Is there a problem with that? I mean, that's a resolution of council. I mean, is there an issue, whoever the acting general manager is at the moment?
I wouldn't.
I have a severe problem with councillors moving a resolution in this chamber and nothing happening. And we've seen some here go in before where things haven't happened and gone contrary to it. I just think it's just been totally ignored.
Well, the conversation can start with the committee of three, but then ultimately it's got to come back to the full council, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion? And those two things that Councillor Miletto and Councillor Whitten brought up, I suppose, go to the crime committee, which... Okay, I'll close the meeting at 5 to 9, and I'll call on Councillor Prevatira to do the finance committee.
Environmental,
sorry, that's a very important committee too.
I would like to open the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee on the 7th of November, with time being 6 to 9. Does any council have a pecuniary interest or significant non-pecuniary interest or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter for consideration at this meeting? Okay. Item 2.1, meeting of the Environmental Sustainability Committee held on the 19th of October.
I'll move the
motion.
I'll second the recommendation.
Any discussion on items? Thank you, and I'll put it to the council. All in favour?
Yep.
Section 3, General Report, Item 3.1, Renewable Energy Initiative. There's a recommendation on page 15.
I'll move that, Mr Chair, for you.
Kidd, the second by Councillor Nugent. For and against, are you going to speak? You want to speak for it? Sorry.
Yeah, I'll just quickly make a comment in favour of speaking for it. I just want to acknowledge the work of the Director of Development Services, plus the Energy Subcommittee of ESCI, in particular Robert Orford and Ron Finch, who have done an enormous amount of work in putting this together, and appreciate the work that has gone into it, and I fully support it. It's good environmentally, but it's more importantly, or just as importantly, it's very good economically in the long term. So I'm very happy to support the recommendation.
Mr. Chair, sorry, can I just, I might have missed one, but I just want to comment on the CRC out at the tip. Does that come under this one or the one before? I just want to say how good it is out there. We went out there the other day and there was a lot of people out there. It's a great new addition to our waste facility, and I think we should have some more publicity that, you can get. Okay, sorry.
Can we put this motion first before we have any matters at right?
Sorry, can I ask a question on this motion of the manager or relevant director? The statement on page 16 is that this rate is usually lower than for grid electricity. So my question there is, what if it's not? Are we sort of locked into a perhaps higher price, and for the period of time we're talking about, particularly with the growth of renewables in many areas, and of course the impact that's having on other energy retail providers, what if it's not lower? We're still locked in, aren't we?
I can assure you staff will not recommend a PPA that is not lower. But you're right, there is a bit of faith there, and looking forward at electricity prices, if they do go down, clearly would be. But the ones we have signed for the Aquatic Centre, we can buy out of any time we like by just simply giving them some capital money.
I'll put the motion to the vote.
Aye.
Aye. Chairman, question. Only a minor detail, but probably, I don't know if it's an important one or not. I notice on the net waste ad they're putting on at the moment on the television, they're showing people actually putting pizza boxes into the green bin. I didn't think you were supposed to put anything, cardboard or anything like that in there. Someone asked me about it the other day, and I said, well, I don't know. I would say no. I think it's very important because it's actually on the net waste ad on television, and people are going to see it and they go, oh boy, I can put the pizza boxes in there, and if that's contaminating it, they maybe need to go back and have a look at the ad.
Mr. Chair, I can seek clarification, but my understanding is that those pizza boxes are compostable.
Yep. So it's fine. So it's okay. That's all I.
What if there's still pizza in it?
On the material, it just says take the pizza out of it. It's only the box.
We'll send an email if how about that?
It's a very important issue, but yeah, it's all vegetarian ones.
If it does contaminate, you have to pluck it out.
We might be.
Okay. Thank you, councillors.
Mr. Chairman.
Hang on.
Just like to ask a question, and taking on notice if you want. North Orange, I've had quite a few people talk to me about lack of trees and greenery in North Orange. I know we probably have a plan. And also I want to ask about the shopping centre at North Orange. The DA for the shopping centre, we allocated in that DA that we had so much green trees planted around it. Of course, they've all been taken out or vandalised or whatever. I wonder if we could put some pressure on the management of the shopping centre to put proper guards to all those trees where they've been taken out. Haven't. The car park, and not those sort of guys. Car park needs to be a little bit beautified in that way, and that's what with a specific type of tree, just to be able to create a little bit of shade and green space in there. The little diamonds are there, but there's nothing in them. I wonder if we could put some pressure on, was in the DA, to have those trees put there. It's important. I think we should, as council, put a little bit of pressure on them to renew those trees and put appropriate protection around them. The first question I said was, how do we build a better, greener look in North Orange on the streetscape? Verge, and put more trees and propagate our own, I don't know. But there be a cost to that? Are they being looked after? Could we put some sort of, these are just questions on notice. How do we the actual owners of the house to look after that tree? We give them or provide onus.
Taking on notice.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the general.
Yeah.
Yeah. It should be something we look at over time as
I can, yeah. In fact, I think I've written to the management on this tree issue before. I'll do again tomorrow. I'll get one of the planners to go up and investigate just what they should have done against the consent. Remember, you've given consent for them to duplicate their supermarket, and one day after Christmas, you'll get a development application in from them to duplicate their supermarket, and that may be another opportunity for you to stress that you'd like to see some improved landscaping around there.
Against trees, not.
Well, it's a maintenance, really. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two or three items. I just want to comment on what Councillor Munro, two things that he brought up. One he brought up earlier and one he just made then about the trees in the car park out there. Let me tell you, I'll have great pleasure in running over one of them because we can't get around there properly without the bus at the moment. So it's going to cop it in the next few years. So he'll just get one. And I'll have no hesitation in running over it because it's in the road. The other issue that I want to, with Councillor Munro spoke about a bit earlier, was the interest in the city and that type of thing. Is there a problem with the Environmental Committee is whether we clean out the entrances into the city like they have at Bathurst? Bathurst looks immaculate when you drive into Bathurst. Either way, come into our place from Forbes Road or the Escort Way, whatever you want to call it, and Molang Road, and it's all this bush and things in the thing. Why can't we clean it out? Is there a reason why the Sustainable Committee won't let us, or what is? The other issue, I mean, they can address that at the next meeting if they wish. The other issue is, why in the hell, have they ever discussed why we're in the Paris Agreement? I mean, sustainability and all those sort of things. Why are we in that? It's going in the same area, going in the same atmosphere. It's all about jobs.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. It's not a local government issue. For God's sake.
Jobs is a local government issue, Mr. Chairman. It's under economic development. Maybe I'm on the wrong one.
I might just follow up on one of the points Councillor Duffy has raised regarding the interest to the town, but particularly as the chair of Tidy Towns, I imagine Councillor Duffy would be quite adamant of the opportunities for various community committees to be involved in the activities to make our town nice and neat and tidy, and particularly with the Tidy Towns Awards coming up this weekend, a fantastic opportunity, and I know the committee's been working hard. Councillor Duffy, I don't think has been at the last couple of meetings, but I'm sure that the Tidy Towns will put on the best display this week, and the very hard-working staff, particularly Roger Smith, who's organised with Keep Australia Beautiful a fantastic program, which will really showcase our city. So I would suggest it's not just the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee that has input, but also the Tidy Towns Committee, which has the opportunity to contribute here.
Mr. Chair, I may help too. At the last Parks, Street Trees and Waterways Committee, the major item was talking about the entrances into Orange. Staff are actually doing up some plans as we speak. Look at some beautification at all the entrances coming into Orange, something that's low maintenance, hopefully vandal proof, and probably similar along the lines to coming into Bathurst. Nice tree plantings. Welcome to Bathurst, and native grasses used in that area, and it looks very good. So the staff are doing that at the moment. And I think it's every major entrance. I think, yeah, every major entrance. So there should be something coming to council very, very soon.
Mr. Chairman, back on to the issue. There's a number of dead trees, Bundarra Close. Bundarra Close, not Bundarra Crescent. Bundarra Close place.
Turner. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of comments regarding the beautification coming into the city. Some of, including Councillor Kidd, when I was previously on council, we allocated the planting of trees coming in from the boundary on the Cargo Road and those pear trees, and that looked magnificent at the moment. As far as some of the beautification down in Bathurst, it's my understanding that some of the trustees at Bathurst Jail do a lot of that work. So if we wish to investigate that possibility to keep down the cost of the beautification, because I do agree with you, rare occasions, yes, it does look pretty good going into Bathurst, right from Raglan right in, etc., but it's not at the cost of the ratepayers, quite a lot of that. It's the prisoners doing the work. Councillor Kidd's comments regarding congratulating everyone in Orange for keeping water consumption down. Bit of a catch-22 situation, because comments about tree planting and then trees dying on the verge up in North Orange, etc. People now are paying more for the water, discouraged from watering the trees because of the cost of, and they've been encouraged to keep the amount of litres per household down. So therefore, they're not encouraged to go out and water the trees, perhaps. Whereas in the past, water was so cheap, people were quite happy to go out and put a hose on the trees and the water on the council verge. So that's, as I said, a catch-22 in some situations where people, I know council will plant trees free out on the verge, but some people are disinclined because of the cost of water of watering those trees, and you see them struggle for a couple of years and then finally give up. So I don't know what the answer is on that one.
Water's the same.
Thank you, Councillor. That concludes the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee. With time being 9:10, I call on Councillor McRae to conduct the Finance Policy Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Privatera. I would like to open the Finance Policy Committee meeting on 7th of November 2018 with the time being 9:07. We haven't gone back in time, have we, on that? No. Does any councillor have any pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? There being none, we'll move on to Section 2, General Reports. Now, we've got requests for financial assistance on page 6. I'm going to request that we address number 5 separately, but unless there's any reason, I'd say that 1, 2, 3 and 4 we could address together.
I'll move 1, 2,
Sorry,
3
Councillor Whitten.
Oh, sorry.
The Mayor to move the motion so I can speak, Madam Chair. Yep.
Sorry, mate.
You're right, mate. Yeah, you're. So it's been moved. Second.
So it's been moved that we address the 4 and then separately. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Whitten.
The question, Madam Chair, through you to the Director. I'm just trying to find it. My apologies. Item 3. Well, I suppose it's to do with some of the recommendations. We're just donating the funds. Some of the funds we're putting on 28-day exhibition. And I suppose point 3, I think the Mayor brought this up at the last meeting about the fight that's going to be in Orange, which is funded by a local young fella who's a head barber. And I should probably declare an interest there. He cuts my hair.
Look at that. Look at that. Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, like, it's going to be on this weekend. It's $1,000. 28 days' time isn't going to really help him. Well, it's going to help him funds, but why is it 28-day exhibition for $1,000?
One acting for private gain.
So I think if we clarify, under the current policy, we are required for any of those applications for donations to follow the policy. And I believe that there is a plan to review both the events and the donations policies, which will then provide perhaps a more timely opportunity and a better structure in terms of future applications of this case. Does that answer your question, Councillor Whitten? The other option, we could provide certainty and we could have an amendment to the motion in terms of it could be declined, but we can't approve without it being on 28-day exhibition.
No, I'm happy to stay with policy.
Yeah, I'm going to...
Councillor Romano.
I just want to make a correction here. Item 2, I need to declare an interest because I didn't see this before. Diwali celebration, I was actually invited to that and attended it. So I'm going to close my eyes and walk out.
It's not a pecuniary.
It's not a significant interest, no.
Did it advantage you in any way?
No. Well, it might look like I'm supporting them because I was invited, that's all.
Party duties.
Okay.
Beautiful. It was a fantastic event.
So if there's no further discussion on items 1, 2, 3 and 4, we'll put those forward. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? That's unanimous. Declare it carried. Item 5, I've got a recommendation I'd like to move from the Chair, and that's that we defer this one. In having read in detail and discussed with some of the staff this application, but being unable to contact the applicant today, I have concern that the application isn't complete enough for us to be able to put it on 28-day exhibition with the relevant information. There's a couple of sections incomplete in the application. There's also a lack of clarity around what they're actually seeking funding for, and I think there could be a better explanation of the benefits to the community. So I'd like to move that we defer this one. Do I have a seconder for my deferral? Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Nugent.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to support the proposal to defer. I just had a question also in relation to this application about, in terms of the policy, the maximum reduces to 50% to $1,000. Does that sort of apply to this one? It seemed to apply to the other one. So if we're putting it out on public exhibition, I just wanted to make sure we're getting the amount right, I suppose.
I think we'll take that on notice. The deferred and the additional response back to the applicant. Councillor Miletto?
Well, just my question is with regards to process, which we've just touched on. Knowing Mr. Everett is a visual impairment, nearly a 6% sight, I'm just wondering whether he was provided any assistance when he handed in the documentation in the first place by council staff. Thank you.
I think we certainly should be offering him that assistance.
I think so.
I believe that it is fairly clear on the council webpage that those wanting to submit donations for or applications for donations are very much encouraged to contact council regarding their applications. Councillor Whitten?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I suppose what I picked up on from earlier, and Councillor Miletto Mayo has done as well, staff have actually approved this to go in tonight's paper, but you made the comment that you overrode that because you weren't happy with the way the form was filled. Now, council staff, were you happy with the way the form was filled in? Why would it be here as a recommendation if he hasn't filled the form in properly? So as a matter of a process, why would a councillor or chair override council's staff member's recommendation for it to be paper? That's what I'm.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Would you like to address that relevant council staff member?
Sure. Through you, Chair, we receive applications, an assessment is made and they are put onto the agenda for consideration. My understanding of the process that's occurred is that the Chair recommended deferral of the application because satisfied that it's sufficient in terms of the details provided to be considered by the council at this meeting. I didn't understand that to be overriding from the Chair recommendation or resolution proposal to put to the council. If the council is open to accept that recommendation or not.
So it's the chair's interpretation and it's just a motion from the chair. So as far as this are concerned, the application down because it wouldn't have been here in the first place. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
So,
Councillor Whitten, would you like to stand?
So sorry, Madam Chair. So this is a motion to defer it. But it's in the paper and it must have passed muster or it wouldn't be here.
Thank you. I'd particularly draw your attention to page 69 of the papers, in which it requests the strategies for our city, our community, our economy and our environment to be identified. And there's no detail under the numbers, which I would think actually provides a really good opportunity to show how it links to our community strategic plan. And it's almost, I'm giving them a second go to ensure that they've got all of the detail for this to go on 28-day exhibition and have the best chance of getting through. Perhaps I'm a little conservative. If you'd like to move the motion that it go on exhibition as is, of course that would be an option if the deferment fails.
Would you second that?
So with no further discussion, I'll put the motion, and that is that item 5 be deferred. Come back to us at the next Finance Committee meeting. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Councillor Munro, would you like your name recorded as against on that one? No. Thank you. Councillors, that concludes the Finance Policy Committee meeting, with the time being 9:16. And I call on Councillor Nugent to conduct the Services Policy Committee.
Thanks, Councillor McRae. And I'd like to open the Services Policy Committee at 9:17 and ask if there, firstly, a declaration of any interest. Does anyone have any pecuniary interests, significant non-pecuniary interests, or less than significant non-pecuniary interests they wish to declare? If not, we'll move to item 2.1, which are the minutes of the NAIDOC Week Community Committee meeting of the 21st of September and the 5th of October. Got a recommendation on page 5. I've got a mover for the motion.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Kidd. Seconded by... thank you, Councillor Munro. Just in relation to this item, I just want to make a couple of comments. NAIDOC Week is just wrapped up. We talked about the Diwali Festival, which was a fabulous event, and this was another fabulous event on the Orange calendar. I think it's a much anticipated event now, and I think the move to the later in the year when it's a bit warmer has been a very good one, a very positive one. I was fortunate enough to attend the NAIDOC Week Awards Night on last Saturday night and represent council there. And I just wanted to firstly commend everyone on the chair of the organising committee, the NAIDOC Week committee, and all the community members on that committee for all of the work that they did in organising NAIDOC Week overall, and in particular the awards night on Saturday night. I'd also like to acknowledge and congratulate the council staff who won, a number of council staff won individual awards, and also one of the council programs won an award. And I'm not sure whether everyone is aware of that or councillors are aware of that, but I think it's worth acknowledging that. Lindsay Hall, who won the Apprentice Trainee of the Year, Donna Monaghan, who won the Employee of the Year, and unfortunately I see is leaving us, which is for that, Donna's been a great member of staff. We had Jason French, who has been working with us on secondment, I think, and won 3 awards on the night, the Black and Deadly Award, the Male Person of the Year and the Male Sports Person of the Year. And then the program, Designing Futures program, which Jason French and Katrina Hausier run, won the program of the year, I think it was, for that particular award. So I'd just like to move a motion that we formally congratulate those staff involved and who won awards, and all those staff that were involved in the Designing Futures program. Thank you, Councillor Kidd. And also to formally thank the chair, Mr. Gerald Power, and all the community members on the NAIDOC Week committee. I'd like to move that we formally thank them for their organising and hard work this year. So, seconded by Councillor Kidd. All those in favour of those 2 motions, if I can put those 2 motions together. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Okay, the motion is carried. So we have to come back, I think, and formally accept. We've had a mover and seconder, I think, of the NAIDOC Week community meeting minutes. All those in favour of accepting those minutes, say aye. Thank you. All those against? Okay, we move on to item 2.2. So the minutes of the Orange and Cabonne Road Safety Community Committee, moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Duffy. All those in favour, say aye. Any discussion, questions? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 2.3, which are the minutes of the Orange Regional Museum Committee of the 16th of October. We've got a recommendation there on page 95, moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Privatera. All those in favour? I didn't ask, was there any discussion or questions in relation to those? Okay, all those in favour say aye. Thank you. All right, and that looks like that brings us to the end of the Services Policy Committee tonight. Thank you, councillors, and I will, with the time being 9:24, I'll call on Councillor Kidd to resume the council meeting.
The council meeting resumes on items 4, notices of motion, notice of rescission. 4.1 is a notice of motion, storage needs of service clubs. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I was approached by Chairman.
I seconded.
Yep, thanks, Councillor.
Councillor Taylor said. Councillor
President of Orange Alliance, Mr Parry, about this issue, and it's one that I believe is something that council could assist the service clubs with, particularly in the festive season coming up, where there's a major fundraising times for them. He's indicated that not only his club but a number of the service clubs, they have equipment and so forth that they have nowhere really to store in close proximity to the CBD. So I asked the General Manager if we could look into this, but we haven't come up with much to date about where we could provide for them. So Mr Mayor, I thought that we could possibly have a look at shed somewhere or whatever, included in the management plan next year, somewhere in close proximity to the CBD. Like I said, we did look at a number of facilities, including our netball house down there at Mulder Park, which posed significant problems as far as stairs and so forth concerned, and insurance issues. Everywhere we turned, we were sort of hit with some complicating issues, and But I think this would be something that would be utilised by all the service clubs, and it'd be something that would be a positive for the community, because the service clubs in Orange, we're pretty privileged here. We've got a number of clubs, Lions, Rotary, Apex, a whole lot of them do a great job in Orange, and I think it's just...
Agree. Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Supporting Councillor Taylor's motion, could I ask the appropriate
Director?
Some years ago, we had the CES out of the, not the CES, the SES. The SES out in, near the council depot in McLaughlin Street. We also had room there for the Volunteer Rescue Association, the VRA. I'm assuming the SES may have taken over that empty building. Is there any way that we know, are they fully utilising that building, or have they just taken it over because it was empty? What I'm saying is it may be part of that, could be an option for what we're looking for.
I think we'll take that on notice, Councillor Turner, and get them to come back with the report. Okay, I'll put all in favour? Against? Thank you. 4.2. Notice of motion, temporary parking permits for organisations doing fundraising. Councillor Taylor.
Second it again, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
Mr Mayor, it's
Taylor, second, Councillor Whittle.
self-explanatory, and I mean it's based around the same premise as far as busy time coming up with Christmas raffles and so forth. Look, the big problem they have is they've sold out, and they provide their time and up to the shopping centres, do raffles or whatever it may be, and come back with a $1 fine in their car because they've overstayed their time. I would expect that we would have to have an agreement with them where we'd have checks and balances in place, i.e. that the particular club would be the custodians of those permits, and they would keep records of who they've been issued to on particular days and in what area. So there'd be some checks and balances in place. Unfortunately, everything you do like this, you've got to do that. 99% of people do the right thing, but you may get the odd person that won't. But I don't expect that would be a problem. But it would, I would imagine, assist them and give them a bit of peace of mind. So I think that, and given the fact, Mr Mayor, and I'll say this, I mean, we had an incident not long ago where a number of councillors were here, and in their role as councillors and their civic duties, they were here and were fined some pretty substantial fines, and seemed to did one stage look at giving them some sort of permits. And I personally didn't agree with that, but that was something that we did initiate. So I thought, well, why don't we do it for the service clubs so that we give them that peace of mind? So it's all self-explanatory as far as that's concerned.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Mileta.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I thank Councillor Taylor for his motion. The only question I have, and I'm not objecting to it, I'm just wondering, when we talk about these permits, that, as you said, that they're not abused. And what I mean by that is, are you saying that these people can use disabled parking spaces in addition to what the normal time frame would be?
No, I wouldn't imagine that disabled spots. No, definitely wouldn't be covered.
It just wasn't clear to me.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Aye. Thanks, Councillor. 4.3, decision motion. Councillors Hamling, Turner and Mileto. Moved Councillor Hamling. A seconder, Councillor Turner.
I'm not going to say too much on this. I think we've discussed this at length. I just want to see this go ahead, and let's get on and build this facility.
Councillor Hamling. Councillor Newton.
I'd like to speak in support of the recommendation, and I thank Councillor Hamling and Councillor Turner and Councillor Mileto for putting it forward. There's a lot of debate and discussion when this came up previously about the width of the field, and I was doing some research in terms of the width of AFL fields, They range, 17 AFL fields around the country, and they range from 116 to 145 metres. The maximum expansion in the current sort of arrangements allow Wade Park to extend to 135 metres. So it puts it right up there, in terms of size. And my understanding is that would put Wade Park at 165 by 135 metres, which places it very close to the Gabba at 138 by 156. So I just don't understand why we would be delaying this. I think a lot of work's gone into the planning. The plans are there. Let's get on, as Councillor Hamling has said, let's get on and do it. Let's get on and build it.
Councillor Nugent.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask a couple of questions first. Have we met the funding timelines on this?
We're outside of the funding timelines at the moment.
So there's no risk of losing the funding?
Absolutely, every risk.
Sorry?
Every risk of losing the fund.
Oh, that's not the information that I received from the Minister's office today. Got to come from the actual Gaming and Racing Department, which then forwarded across to the Minister, so they're going to withdraw it. That was a little bit different. Okay, that's the first question I got from. Now, it's not about the actual cricket centre at all. The argument's about what we can do with the actual ground in the future in 40 or 50 years' time as regards to what can happen on the east. The ground across from picket fence to picket fence, 124 metres. From the picket fence to Peasley Street is 19 metres. Want to expand the ground that few little bit extra and take a few metres away. What are you going to put over that eastern side when you've got allowed for carriageways and all those type of things there? The moving of the thing 4 metres or 4 metres save a little bit of extra across that side of the road. I don't have, as I said, I don't have a problem with that, but it's the future of what's going to happen at the Wade Park as a ground. Want that as a major centre? We definitely want it as a major centre because we've got the middle of town paying a third more in rates than any other area around. I haven't seen anyone move a motion in this chamber to reduce rates in the CBD. The people want to go there and to filter back into your city. It's about the actual future of the ground. I'm extremely disappointed. Again, I go back to the situation where we had that committee and we have never had the opportunity to have a meet and have a discussion. As we could have solved a lot of these issues by having a discussion in the first place. I know plenty of other things have happened where council has been involved in discussions and the problems have been solved. Look, I mentioned in this chamber before why we talk about Bathurst and all those type of things. Well, I'll tell you now why. You've got Marsden Lane, or I think it's extension of George Street, they've probably got 2 or 3 rectangular fields. And now, and you talk about AFL ovals, you've got George Park, 145 metres. You've got the sports ground, 145 metres diameter. Where do you think they're going to go? Do you think the AFL are going to care that much about coming to Orange when they've got a bigger field? Of course they're not. AFL can be played on a smaller ground, that's okay. But where are they going to go to play their main games? As they are with the rugby league, they go to a place that's going to accommodate them. Where is the protection in this design and what's it look like looking from the east? We haven't seen it. Where's the protection of the players? Where's the protection of the any of those type of things in there? Where is all the actual technology thing going for all these type of things? There's nothing there. There's no problem with the actual trying to think of the cricket centre of excellence at all. The only problem with it is someone's got to walk with his kit. He's got to go around about 100 metres in his cricket clothes to go and have a practice on the turf wicket. That's a problem. And every other centre, every other centre has to go to Albury Wodonga or go to Canberra. They just walk straight out the door and they're on them. But it's about the future of the actual ground and what's going to happen in 40 or 50 years' time. And it's very patchworky. There's no, what's going to happen with the old building alongside it? Do we know? What happens if it doesn't fit with the design that we approve here? I don't know. We don't know these things. We don't know whether we're going to actually reduce, knock the old one down or do another one. We've had no detailed costings or no studies. And I'm happy that that part of the resolution's there. I think it's fantastic. It should have been part of the whole thing right from the word go as regards to the future of the ground. And yeah, that's my complaint. What it is, if you're going to pinch a bit of land on the other side, you've only got 19 metres. You can't do much with 10 metres, because you've got to allow vehicles to go along the edge. I think it's just a future thing that you've got to look at. Simple as that.
Holy gee. First, Councillor Romano and then Councillor Milletta.
I've got a couple of questions. If this facility is built, can this field be widened if it's necessary in the future? Well, my understanding is that it can be from the site meeting we had. Can it be widened if there is an issue with the width of the field? Will the new facility stop that from happening? I was told no. I was told that we can do it later. Is that correct?
Get that in.
The answer is yes, you can do it later.
Mm-hmm.
You can field you want to build. Field that occupies the entire area of Wade Park.
No, within the
If
AFL
it's
sizes. Okay. And the other question was one was resolved by a letter or an email by Mr. Morder, and that was referring to a back on the grandstand, which fantastic. Didn't think it was going to work without a back. And the other one is player protection. Councillor Duffy just raised that. I know it's only a sketch. Well, it's more than a sketch, but is player protection, has that been considered in the final drawings for players and coaches and ambulance officers to be able to walk in and out without tripping over chairs and players, and spectators?
I suppose it's the normal race arrangement from
What I mean is you might get irate spectators that are not happy with a particular team and harass the players when they're walking back to the change room. It happens all the time. Yeah, well, that's one thing I'd like to see addressed if possible.
covered walkway.
An area that they can't be manhandled or abused. I know that people can throw things at them anywhere, but
That's the only way we could do that is build it.
I'd like to see a private area for players and coaches to be able to walk.
St George playing.
Walk in and out of the field without being harassed. I just noticed that on the drawing, and it's just a point that I'd like to raise. That player protection is very important.
You have to build a tunnel.
A tunnel, you can't do it out of a cheaper way?
How about we take that on?
We'll take that on notice. I think.
Yeah,
We'll
okay.
get back to you. Okay, Councillor, who was next?
The Australian cricket team will play.
Councillor Milletta was next, and Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in regards to Councillor Duffy's comment about allowing future development in 50 years' time, I know that I won't be here in 50 years' time. Standing that, one thing which doesn't change in 50 years' time or 100 years' time is the way that the sun comes up and goes down. The reasons why we build grandstands on the western side of a ground is that the sun is behind you. But then to look at the future and build on the eastern side of the grandstand, anybody who sat on the eastern side of the grandstand would have the sun in their eyes. Hence the reason why it was originally built like that. And hence the reason why nobody sits there at this point in time. That's the reason why we have portable grandstands there, just for that overflow of people. So I think what needs to be considered here is if we are looking at extending the size of the ground, it would make more sense to extend it to the east, where you'd expect less people to sit. Having been involved in sport for a long period of time, I don't know a lot of grounds which have the luxury of vehicles being able to drive right around a park next to the ground. That's going to be a thing of the past. When we talk about safety, the last thing you want to be doing is parking your car beside on the eastern side of Wade Park and collecting a cricket ball from somebody who's hitting it there. So I can see that as a safety risk within itself if we're talking about making Wade Park a premier cricket ground. They're just a couple of issues which I would like to make when considering this rescission motion.
Munro.
I'd like to tell you what we do have, and we just heard a lot of negatives, I suppose, about what we don't have. We have the funding, we have the ability, fantastic opportunity. Look, I do think Councillor Duffy's heart's in the right place, and really you do know what you're talking about in this regard. But I say it needs to be pushed east, and we do one day want to put a grandstand on the eastern side of the ground. That way a little bit further, or have a narrow one, it doesn't matter. I think we've got to get the thing built, and I think we've got to really think about lose the funding, what it could be all over our faces if they pulled it. And you know, they can do it. They can do it. It can happen. If there's a little bit here, is it? Yeah. So, look, I just think we ought to get it done.
Councillor McRae.
Mr Mayor, look, in this chamber over the last couple of months, Councillor Duffy's been very passionate about what funding promises Orange is getting compared to some of our local neighbours and insisting that we have shovel-ready projects. What we have here is a DA, the local neighbours have been consulted. They're as happy as they're going to be with the development going next door. We're talking about athletes having to walk 100 metres. Sorry, we're talking about athletes having to walk 100 metres. I think we really need to look at this DA as submitted, as the cricket leaders and the clubs happy, the neighbours happy. We need to just let it happen. If we're talking 40 or 50 years, who knows what Orange is going to look like then? Who knows what's going to happen with some of our key sports and indeed the development of our city over time with our sporting precincts. I think what we have here, and like government's handing out or parents handing out some pocket money, we've been whinging that the other kids are getting more, but when we're offered some, we don't know what to do with it or we're not sure where to spend it, and so it sits there and it's going to disappear. So I'd say we need to move forward. We have a fantastic concept, the cricket centre, but more importantly, this second part of this motion includes examining some of the opportunities to work with the Western Grandstand so that we can have an outstanding facility with refurbishment and renewal to current standards. We need to do something with Wade Park. We've got the funding, we've got the plans. Let's make it happen.
Any other speakers?
Can I close
sorry,
the debate?
Councillor Henry. Yeah, you're
Close
close
the
to debate, yep.
My main question is, why do we want to move it? Why do we want to make it bigger? Every ground is different. The MCG is bigger than the Gabba. The SCG is smaller than every ground is different. Why do we want to move it? What's the idea of wanting to extend it? I don't get it. Is it big enough to play AFL there? Yes. Is it big enough to hold cricket games there? Yes. Why do we want to spend money on trying to move the ground? A couple of councils have hit the nail on the head. We would look silly. We've heard some nice speeches tonight about what Bathurst and Dubbo have been getting. We've got this money. Let's get on. Let's build it. Let's make Wade Park the centre of cricket excellence in Western New South Wales so they don't have a choice to take any other high-class game but to Orange. You know, if we're going to support the rectangular sporting precinct, which means a showcase ground into the future, why do we want to build a stadium at Wade Park to hold so many people? We don't want to duplicate it at the rectangular ground. We're not going to get that big a crowd to an AFL where we need I don't think we need another grandstand on the eastern side. I think once we build the western one, stage 2 on top of the cricket facility, and then do stage 3, the redevelopment of the old grandstand, we've got enough seats for what we want. So, yeah, let's just get on with it.
That closes debate. Thanks, Councillor Hamling. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? You.
Six.
We move on to 5, which are general reports. First of all, we have 5.1, which is the statement of investments.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. We have to put the resolution. That was the first one was on the rescission motion. We have to put the resolution to follow.
Both together, as I understand.
Both together, was it?
Yeah.
They're both together.
5.1 is the statement of investments.
Do the recommendation.
Councillor Whitten, seconded Councillor Munro. All in favour?
Aye.
5.2 is the quarterly budget review and performance indicators.
Do the recommendation.
Councillor Whitten, seconded Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Regarding, while supporting the recommendation, down below key achievements over the quarter, regarding the Canopolis Scout Camp facility, as is noted, we've now taken it over and we're making some improvements. I and I understand that the cottage is now being rented out, and rather than having a caretaker there, as was previously the arrangement, it concerns me a little bit that the front entrance is very, very basic. There's nothing been done as far as the front entrance for the last 100 years. It's now a council facility. So whether we need to come back with a report on how we can upgrade that, I'm concerned that now that the general public have been invited to go in there through various functions, etc., there's nothing to stop anyone driving in there 24 hours a day. The council at least had a caretaker there with some responsibilities. The people that are renting the cottage have no legal responsibilities as far as who comes in and who comes out. So I think we need to, in the funding in the future, I'm not saying it's urgent, but I think we certainly need to upgrade the front, whether that involves gates or brick pillars on each side, but also importantly some CCTV cameras so we've got an idea of who is going in and out. I am really concerned that someone eventually will go in there and cause considerable damage or set fire to one of the buildings or whatever it might be. And now that it is a council facility, we do have some responsibility to ensure the safety and the protection of what is now a council facility. So even if we just, if I call for a report on what we may do and what we then put it into next year's budget, things like that.
We've got an application in at the moment for grant funding, just for the Scout camp.
Yeah, I realise that, but I thought that was more specifically to upgrade the kitchen and toilet facilities.
It's a range of things, yeah, but will I take that on notice? I agree with you that we should get a report back what it needs to do.
It does concern me that it's now a public facility, and
part of that, may I suggest, saying we should have an inspection out there.
Yeah, sure. Well,
I'm familiar, but councillors may want to go out.
I think it's reasonably important that in any funding allocation and spending that CCTV cameras at least be installed at the front entrance.
Yeah, agree. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. 5.3 is the appointment of the native title managers.
Move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Moved Councillor
I'll
Whitten.
second it.
Seconded. Who was seconded?
That was a question, Mr Chairman.
Councillor Munro. Hamling, was it? Sorry, Councillor. Yeah.
Do you know, why don't we have Indigenous people involved in this?
Don't we have?
Do we?
I don't know.
That's my question.
They need to be qualified staff members. Ask. Idle and that staff who have been nominated have the appropriate skills.
Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a question in relation to the appointment of these people. I'm happy to support the recommendation, but is the role attached to the position or the individual? My reading of it is that the individuals have trained and got the qualification. If a person leaves that role, does the appointment stay with the position, and then, or does it have to be reallocated?
We'd have to identify another specific councillor and bring it back.
You've got to fit the qualification. If you look on page 2292, look in that first paragraph, down on the sixth line, that needs to be changed to native.
Naive.
Right, sorry.
Being naive, we want them to be native title. Okay, all in favour? We've done that, sorry. That concludes the closed meeting now. The General Manager will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council. I extend an invitation to any member of the public present at the meeting to make a representation to Council as to whether the meeting should be closed for a particular item. In accordance with the Local Government Act of 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation of 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following businesses of a kind as referred to in Section 10A, brackets 2 of the Act, and should be dealt with in a confidential session of the Council meeting closed to the press and public. Thank you. Items to be considered in close are 6.1. Reason for confidentiality. This item is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A, brackets 2, brackets A, personal matters concerning particular individuals other than councillors. And 6.2 is the reason for confidentiality there. Is this item is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A, brackets 2, brackets D, brackets I, commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it, and G, advice concerning litigation or advice that would otherwise be privileged from production in legal proceedings on the ground of legal professional privilege.
Amongst all councils, case, or are we subsidising small councils?
To council at this stage in signing up to the class action, when the class action, so the court will determine the claim in respect of the lead council and make findings that will then apply to all other members of the class. All councils within New South